Hey, what's up YouTubers? This is Nader from Reviewable, and I'll be doing a review of the Spyderco Sage 2. So first I'm going to talk about the name and why it's called the Sage. So Spyderco has a line of knives, and it's called the Sage, right? So each Sage knife is a tribute to a knife maker who invented a locking mechanism. So the Sage 2 is a frame lock, and this is a tribute to Chris Reeve, and he invented the frame lock. It's an absolutely genius design, and it's superior to the liner lock. And I'll tell you why real quick. So first, the frame lock uses less pieces, and people like this. Manufacturers like this, and overall it keeps the price of the knife down, and it makes it easier to take apart. So there's only 2 pieces for the handle, 1 scale and 2 scales. That's one reason, and the other reason is for strength. Liner locks are usually thinner and they can slip, but when this is in your hand, you could see that when your fingers curled around it, you're pushing the lock to wedge up further against the tang of the blade so that it can't slip. So if you're hard using it and it bends, it still won't slip because your hand is still pushing against it. Absolutely genius. So let me talk about the materials that Spyderco uses. All the materials that Spyderco uses in the Sage 2 are very high quality. The handle is made out of titanium. Titanium is very light, it's strong, and it's rust proof. Personally, I love titanium because I can anodize it, and anodizing is changing the color of the metal using various ways like heat and electricity. Some cons of titanium are that it's more expensive than things like G10 and FRN, and it also shows marks more easily. So if you like to put your knife in the same pocket with your keys, it'll show light scratches, but really this is a user knife, so I really don't mind that personally. So I love titanium. There's so many more pros than cons that it just makes it such a superior handle material than any other material to use. Spyderco uses CPM S30V, which is a super steel. CPM means that it's a powdered metal, so when they melt it all together and form the metal itself, it's very homogeneous. So when you sharpen it, the edge is very fine, and you don't find any bigger bits in the whole metal mix, so that when you cut things, it's a very smooth cut, and it's just far superior than a metal that's not powder composite. S30V itself is very corrosion resistant, which means that it won't rust easily, which is very useful, especially if you don't like to clean off your knives right away or you work at sea. So that's another huge plus. And the edge retention of S30V is pretty damn good, so I like it personally a lot compared to something like VG10, which I have nothing against VG10, but it's just superior to it. Some cons is that because S30V is such a hard metal, it'll chip easily. It'll chip easier than other metals. So if you cut on ceramic or you cut on other harder things, you might find a lot more chips in your edge, which kind of sucks. But S30V is also harder to sharpen, so those chips that you want to get away with sharpening might take a little longer. So if you don't have a relatively expensive or you don't have just the tools to sharpen it, it'll be difficult to maintain S30V. So keep that in mind. So before you buy this knife, you make sure that you have a sharpening kit so that you can actually maintain the S30V, so that your knife actually can stay a knife and you could actually cut with it. So let's go on to the design. It's made with ergonomics in mind. So this is a Spyderco knife, and most Spyderco knives really just care about ergonomics. I care about ergonomics. So it has a wide handle, as you can see. It has a flow-through design, and that is epic. Very, very epic. You could see that it's just floating on 2 standoffs, which means that water will just go right through it. Any dirt or anything you need to clean out, just wash the knife, and it's just perfect. You don't have to worry too much about cleaning. So that's another huge plus. The choils on this knife are sick. Has a huge finger choil right here. Boom. And it has the thumb ramp, and both are jimped. So you can get, like, you see those little bumps so that your fingers can't slip off them, which is genius. And it's incredibly useful, especially when you're doing things that require a lot of force. Let me talk about the chamfered edges. These are chamfered edges. You see the way that it's not just a square, a direct square. Like the handle itself isn't just like one piece of metal that's just cut one way and cut that way. It cut that way on an angle also, so that way you don't get any sharp edges on the handle, so it's not uncomfortable. And these are deep chamfers, so you also get that on the finger choil too, which is incredibly nice, so that if you're doing a lot of cutting for a long time, it's not uncomfortable. The whole time so far I've used this knife, it hasn't been uncomfortable, which is a huge, huge plus, and it's incredibly important when I buy a knife, which is why most of my knives are Spyderco knives, because they're very comfortable. And some people might not like the look of these knives. I do, but you see that everything's really wide compared to like a slender knife. So this is made to be a knife, and it's made to be a user. So design on this knife is sick. The clip, let me talk about the clip. I don't use clips, and I don't use them only because I live in New York. And because I live in New York, if a clip is showing on a knife, it's considered open carry, which then is a no-no, going to jail. So that's why I don't use clips, and that's why I don't mention clips. I don't like to talk too much about clips, but this is an excellent clip. It has good tension. It'll stay in your pocket real well. It also has this curve right here it accepts your pocket, so that it won't just fall out of your pocket really easily. I like that. It's not super deep carry, but it's deeper carry than other knives, so I like that. So this guy is made in Taichung, Taiwan, and that means you're getting some of the better quality of Spyderco knives. And these knives that are made in Taichung, Taiwan, like the Sage 2, are all built really well. You can have higher expectations with these guys. So far the blade play has been minimal, and the centering has been excellent. So it's really just dead center, and the blade play is minimal. I muscle side to side blade play. I can do it. I don't really like to. Then again, it is a folding knife. As long as the blade play isn't enough where it affects my cutting, it really doesn't matter. But it has never. So I have no problems with the blade play. There's very minimal side to side, and there's no up and down. So there's no problems with that. The blade shape is a spear point, or like some people like to say, leaf shaped blade. It can pierce incredibly well. I love it. I've had no issues with it. But full flat grinds, which this is, it's completely flat. As you can see, it goes from the edge directly up to the top. So it's just flat. And so sharpening is a little difficult when you're using a set angle sharpener like the Lansky or the Wicked Edge, because if you don't take real care of it, like real good care when you're sharpening, the edge might come uneven. So like one side could be a wider I'll show you. So like one edge could be longer. You see the point of like reflection here? That's the edge. So one side might be longer than the other, and that could create for an uneven look, and aesthetics are gone a little bit with the edge. So keep that in mind with full flat. Also, if you're cutting things like apples, things that are really hard, I mean like that don't budge at all, once it gets to the spine of the knife, it might break off, like the apple piece might break off. So if you're cutting things like boxes and stuff like that, it's excellent, but keep that in mind. With fruit and stuff like that, it might not be the best. So I'm gonna do a comparison now between the three other Spydercos that I have, which are also one of the three most popular Spyderco knives. I'll do a size comparison between them. As you can see, the Paramilitary 2 is biggest. The Delica's actually, it looks a little bit longer, and the handle's a little bit thinner. And the Dragonfly is just a really small, awesome knife. So I'll show them to you guys all open now. You can see that the Paramilitary 2 looks the most aggressive, and so Delica looks pretty aggressive too, while the Sage is just very wide. So that's it, guys. That's my first ever YouTube video. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Peace.